Hi, I'm Daniel with SlipSki Solutions. Today we're going to be going over our Dorado build. Last week we went over our boat garage install. We're just going to be going over some of the key points and doing a little instructional step-by-step video to go through all these parts and how to install one of our covers. First thing we're going to start off with is going over all the parts that are going to come with your Dorado build. These are going to be all the parts that come in the box. You're going to have some lag bolts. You have two-way connectors, and however many is supposed to be with your build is going to be included. Three-way connectors and one-way connectors. You're also going to have some 3/8 washers. You're going to have some of these 1/4-inch cap nuts. We're going to include the 3/8 bolts. This is going to be a lock nut. You got a lock washer and 2 washers. Also coming with your build is going to be some of this anti-seize lubricant for the aluminum and some self-tapping screws. For your bungees, we got 2 different sizes. You have a 9-inch, and this is going to be important later on when we're installing the cover. And you also are going to have 6-inch. You're going to have these caps. And these are going to go on the end of the square tubing. That's basically all the hardware and parts that are going to come with it. Over here, some of the tools that you're going to need to do the install. Just like with our boat garage install, it's pretty much the same set of tools. You're going to have your rubber mallet. You're going to need a tape measure, a pair of pliers. We'll need a 9/16" socket and a 3/8 socket with whatever drive you're going to be using. It's recommended that you use a impact. We'll need the drill for this build. All you're going to need the drill for is for your lag bolts on the dock with a 1/4-inch bit, and then a grinder. The grinder is going to have, we're going to need a cutting disc for aluminum and then a flapper wheel. That's going to be basically it for your install. One more thing that's going to come with it is the tarp. Whichever color you've ordered, and it's going to be already sized out to your dimensions, of course. And now here's some of the stuff that we've laid out beforehand. So you got the arches. You have some cables that are going to hold your supports together. They're going to go through the arches, and they are going to go hold these tubing in your arches. You're going to have some square tubing, and that's going to go in the ends. Maybe you follow me over here. Depending on the size of your build, this could be different. This build right here comes in 2 pieces for each wall. You're going to have these connector plates. These connector plates are going to connect the frames together. If you look right here, you can see better. So this frame is going to be joined in with this connector right here. You got 4 holes. These will come pre-installed and they'll be on your frame already. 2 ways that you can do it depending on your space. We're going to do it in both ways. We can install the connectors here on the ground, which is a little bit easier and preferred if you have the space to do it. If not, we can bring them out on the dock piece by piece and install them out there. But we'll go over both ways with you today. So we're just going to start going from here, going through each step and explaining it. Again, if you have any questions during your install or if you come up with a problem, always feel free to contact us. So right here we're going to be connecting these 2 frames on the ground, which is a little bit easier than doing it out on the dock. If you look at the frame right here, you're going to notice that your connectors are offset to one side of this this tubing. So your connectors right here, you got your tubing, and you see they're all offset to this side. Make sure that the frame you're connecting is also offset to the same side. If you get that flipped around, you're gonna have to start over. We don't want to do that. So what we did here, these connectors, go ahead and loosen them. It's gonna make it a little easier to line it up. If you have it tight, you might have a little trouble getting it lined up. So go ahead and loosen them. You're going to take one of your 3/8 bolts with a washer on top. Slide it through there. Once you get it in there, you're going to take a flat washer, a lock washer, and before we put that on there, go ahead and put your little anti-seize on it. Take your lock nut and just start you a couple threads. Before you tighten any of them down, go ahead and get them all on there. You don't need too much of this or you'll just make a mess. So just put a little bit on there. Alright, so for this next part, all we're doing, we got our bolts through there. We're going to go ahead and tighten them up. It's best with these lock nuts to go ahead and get your impact to be on the nut. Hold your back up on the bolt head. Alright, so now we got one frame put together. We're going to go ahead and walk this out to the dock, and then we'll go over doing one of these out on the dock next. Alright, so we're going to do, we brought both of these pieces up here separately. Just the difference that we're doing over there, we put those together on the ground. This one we're coming out on the dock. Matt's going to go ahead and loosen them right here so that you have a little more play to line up the plates. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put some dope on here. Hand it up to Matt and then we'll just bolt it up right here.
So that's the last bolt right there. We're going to go ahead and fasten it down. Whenever you're installing the walls, you want to make sure your receivers are to the outside of the dock. You don't want to mix that up or your arches will not line up right. So the receivers are going to be all on the outside of this 2.5-inch tube. Make sure that it's to the outside of the dock. All right, so we got the walls stable right now. What we're going to do is take one arch, install it, and it's going to hold the frame up. So what you want to do is grab your 2 straight connectors and put them in the receivers on the arches. Take your arch to the back or front, whichever's in you're doing first, and hammer your arch in to the receivers on the wall. So putting a little bit of this anti-seize on the straight connectors will help it slide into the connector, the receiver, a lot easier. So you just use a little bit, put it on the bottom with the straight connector. Want to make sure it goes all the way down. So that's what you're going to do to all your arches before you install them on the wall. Okay.
Alright, so for putting your arch on, you're going to have a person on one side. He's just going to pass it over to you. They're pretty light. Bring it over here. And you're just going to get it started. Get one side started going in. And then you can get your buddy over on the other side to get his going. And then speed it. you're going to repeat this process until you have all your arches on. One thing to notice, whenever they come, they're going to be labeled left and right. Make sure you have them all going the same way down the frame. So we got all the arches on except for the last one. This is where we're going to stop and move on to the next step. We're going to start putting the cables through and the tubing that goes in between the arches. Make sure you do that before you put the last arch on. So that's going to be what we're going to go over next. For this next part, we're going to be using this 1/2-inch tubing. That's going to come in your packaging. And we're going to have some cables. You should have 5 cables in each set. If you notice, you're going to have a short end and you're going to have a long end. You're going to feed the long end through the tubing, leaving these already tightened up. These are going to butt up against the arch. It's just important to remember that the long end is the one that you're going to be feeding through all the arches. The short end stays at the back side. And we'll go over how to do that here. All right, so this is the long end like we had discussed earlier. You're gonna have the hardware off of it. Slide your cable through. Get it out on this side before you pull it all the way tight. Get it started through your next arch. And then you're just gonna pull it up. And it's in place. You're gonna do this all the way till you get through the last arch that you have installed. And then before we put the very last arch on, we'll run this through it. So that way you have some room to get it through. Okay, so the last part on putting the supports in between your arches, this is why we left the last arch off. You're gonna grab your arch, set it on top of the frame. All right, you're gonna leave it right there. Get a tube for each side. Alright, and then we're going to pick the arch up. Stick it in there. And then once you got it right here, we'll go ahead and put a nut and a bolt on there just to hold it in place, and we'll feed the other poles through there. Before we tighten it down, we'll leave the nut and bolt loose on here, feed the rest of them over. We'll pick this arch up, set it in, hammer it down. Then at that point is when we'll tighten the cables for this.
So this is the finishing point with your wires. You got your all thread coming out. What you want to do is make sure it's tight. Run your Take your nut off. Put a lock washer on. Use one nut, run it down. So you put your ratchet wrench on there, it's going to be a 7/16 inch. And you want to hold a backup on this thread right here. Don't worry about damaging that because we're going to be cutting this off. So you hold it there, snug this up. You don't want to over tighten it, you just want to get it snug. Then you can fill your support poles, and if they're moving a little bit, that's fine. So after that, you're going to put your backup nut on there, snug it up against the other nut just a little bit. Once it's tight like that, you're good to go. So this part's finished. What we're going to do is cut this off and then install the end cap on there, the end nut.
For this next part, we're going to be cutting the threads off of here so that we can put our cap nut on. If you want, you can just put the cap nut up here, kind of measure it. It's going to be about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little more. Take our grinder. Once we got it cut, we're gonna just cover it up with our cap nut, and then we'll just wrench that tight. And we'll continue to do that for the next threads, and then we'll be ready to go to the next step. All right, for the next part, we're gonna be putting on this end piece that goes all the way across. You're gonna need the 1.5 inch square tubing. So you got here, and you're gonna need some connectors. So you'll have two 90s, a 90 on the end, and a 90 on the end, on just about every build. In the middle, you're gonna have 3-ways. What we like to do is build it all together. So if you see right here, we have a 90, and then we're gonna go to 3-ways. We'll put a 3-way in, we'll get our next piece, and build it all the way on the ground. Once we got it built on the ground, then we'll fit it up there and work our way across, hammering it in as we go.
So you want to hammer it in just a little bit to get it started. Work your way from the middle to the outside. All right, let me get right here.
Going in, very big thing. Next step that we're going to go through is putting on the tarp. There's a couple different ways to do it. We're going to show you just from doing it a couple times the way we like to do it. When you get it out of the box, it's going to be rolled up. So you're going to roll it across. This right here, these go on the ends. Each side's going to have these little loops sewn in them, and they're going to go front and back.
This is back, front, or vice versa.
Yeah. Then this right here, the where you got your stitching, you'll see that goes on the bottom side. This is going to be the top of the tarp. You can also tell the top of the tarp is kind of a matte color. The bottom side's a little shinier. So what we're gonna do is roll it across. We're gonna take the whole thing like this, set it on top, and then unfold it on top and just bring it across the cover. And we'll show you how that goes. Thing to consider when you're putting the tarp on. Today out here on this lake, we got the wind coming at us from the back of the cover. So that's gonna help us unfold it. If we were trying to unfold it against the wind, it would make it more difficult. So keep that in consideration whenever you're rolling it out too, which way the wind's blowing. To put the end bungees on, you're going to go through one of these straps, go through another strap, and then connect the balls. And I'll give you So some tips on putting the bungees on. When you are putting it on, you're going to go through the bungee and then wrap it back around the bungee one time. It's going to be like that. So you go through the bungee, grab one end, and just wrap it around. Also, whenever you're putting the bungees on, to start off, do the corners first and then put one in the middle, and that'll kind of give you a good base to start stretching it out evenly. While you're putting it on there, you just kind of look at where it needs to be pulled tight and work on that side. If you go down one side and then another side and just in a circle, it's liable to sit on there uneven and also possibly have some creases in it. So working it evenly like this is going to help it give a smooth look and the fit tight and properly. You're not.
All right, so these are your self-tapping screws. Use a 3/8 socket to drill these in to the receivers. What this does is it's going to keep the canvas, the top of the cover, from coming up and out of the inserts. So you're going to use one for the top right here, and then one for the bottom right here. There's the top. And that's the bottom. This is going to keep it from coming out. Also, with these self-tapping screws, the aluminum is pretty soft, so you don't want to put a lot of force on them. That can cause stripping in the aluminum and your bolt will just come in and out. So you just want to, once it snugs up against the aluminum, you just want to let off on it. You don't want to tighten it too much. All right, so these are your end caps. These go on your 2.5-inch tubes right here. You just hammer them in. This prevents debris from getting inside the aluminum and water buildup. So we'll just put it, square it up, hammer each corner in. Once you're flush there, you're good to go.
Start with drilling a pilot hole. Once you got the pilot hole drilled out, you're going to come back with your lag bolts. This part's important if you're using an impact. I like to get it just snugged up. If you go too far and you keep going through your dock, then you will strip it out. You'll have to move it, replace it. So once we get it just barely snugged up, then we'll come back with a wrench, a ratchet, and we'll snug them up the rest of the way.